Welcome to Flat Earth Debate. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel or you have not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support this channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, but most importantly, if you would like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the shape of the Earth. There are a couple of rules in the Hangout. Number one, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the show using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next show. In a moment, I'm going to transition across to the Hangout, as we do have Sleeping Warrior waiting in the wings to do a quick presentation, but in the meantime, please share the show. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show. And one last time, if you are new to the channel or you have not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. And with that, I'll say my first introduction. How are you doing, Sleeping Warrior? Good to have you here.
I'm doing okay, man. How are you?
Very well, no complaints.
Good. Well, I'll hog the mic while you go and do your background stuff. If you could just share me on screen, because I want the sound to be passed through.
Let me know when you're ready.
I'm doing it. I'm sending it over. So share screens, sent over.
You ready, yeah?
Yeah, I'm good to go, mate, yeah.
Okay, you're up.
Great. I just want to get the chat up, so bear with me while I get chat up. Forget it. It's all right, forget chat. Right, so Sly Sparkane. To be honest, Sly is one of my favourite ball earthers, right? Because his quality of his productions is high, and it's the highest I've seen in a ball earther. And what he's done is he's actually dedicated a 3-minute video to one particular point, but he's done it in such a way that is, well, I appreciate it. I love it. I love the way he does his videos. He's concise. He makes the point clearly, and he deserves kudos. And that's why I'm going to deal with him first, because then I can just refer him back to this video straight after it, and it's dealt with comprehensively. And I'm going to play this without the sound, because you don't need the sound, because what he's saying in this video is that if the Earth's flat, why is it you can only see certain parts of the Isle of Man when you're up a hill? So only parts of the island are seen from a certain elevation. Now look what he's just done there. He removes part of this here, right? That is hugely important. Now that tells me that Sly knows. Right, I'm gonna go out on a limb and I'm gonna repeat what I've said many times over. Sly knows the Earth's flat. He absolutely knows, and this for me is a tilt of the hat. He's done this as a tip of the. It's like literally he's tipping his cap to us. Now that bit there is the bit I know. I know Sly knows the Earth's flat. I know he does. Now, what I'm going to talk through is just the first, because we only get to like 2/3 of the way through and then we stop. But he says there would be no way they shouldn't be able to see the shores of the Isle of Man from the hilltop because the observation point, if only 1 foot above the water, is higher than the shores of the Isle of Man across a plain. Well, what's this little band that you've removed here, Sly? Me and Nathan know what it is, but mainstream science doesn't tell us what this is. But you've removed this, and I'm curious as to know why, because mainstream science doesn't explain this, but you've removed it out your video, right? That's the first point. Now, he talks about it, and he says, first they said Ireland was in the pictures. Well, I'll correct you there, Sly. It was a question mark, and the question mark means was Ireland in the picture. We were asking was it, and we did think it was. The evidence did lead us to that conclusion, I agree. But it was a question mark originally, and because of the failure of the ballers to disprove it for a long, long time, then we came to the conclusion that we were in fact looking at Ireland. We've since changed our position because somebody did some scaling work and made a valid point that we thought was correct. And therefore, we've retracted that and said, yeah, it's not Ireland we're looking at on this occasion. So we asked a question, didn't get the answers that we needed to be able to establish the facts. That's down to the ballers. And in the end, we conceded the point. He says the same about Scotland. Same applies. Right. Using various Earth curve calculators which use geometry, which all flat earthers say are untrue, are based on the geometry calculation isn't untrue. What we're saying is it doesn't match reality. Are based on that perfect circle with no atmosphere, which the Earth is not. Agreed. Those measurements are a guideline. No, they're actually empirical. They're actually set to the shape of the Earth. They're not a guideline.
Oh, did he just say the shape of the Earth is just a guideline? What did he
No,
say
he said he said the measurements are a guideline.
24,900 miles, 901 miles. I was corrected on that 1 mile. That is absolutely set in stone.
Yeah, they're not a guideline, Sly. They're not a guideline at all. They're part of the picture of the science that we are told we live on the shape of a ball, right? That is part of the rule. It is not a guideline. It's a rule, right? These things are not things that you can play with. They're not a guideline that you can breach, manipulate, shape, mold. They're actually set in stone. So that is the wrong word, and I don't know why he's done it, but could just be a slip of the tongue. But anyway, let's not dwell on it. So they say the Isle of Man should not be seen at all on the globe. They say that the Isle of Man should not be seen at all on the globe. No, we don't say that. I mean, we accept that we should see like the mountains. Okay, that's misrepresentation, but I'll let that slide because I'm coming to a crescendo of a point that's brilliant on this. Which, if you wanted to do the perfect circle geometry without an atmosphere, may well be true. Okay, you'd have to get further away, but okay. But why argue numbers? Just take a photo from the shoreline, right? So this is where I go back to this bit here, right? He's removed a big chunk of the thing here, right? Take a photo from the shoreline. Now, this is the bit I want you to focus on, right? What he's done here is he's dropped the elevation of the man down to the shoreline. But watch what he does to the Isle of Man, this mountain here. Watch what happens at the same time as you drop your elevation. What happens, right? It's not shrinking. It's not a scale reduction. It's dropping. What he's trying to show is that it's dropping. But the point is the peak of the mountain drops with the observer because of the curvature of the Earth, right? That's what his model tells us. So watch again. As the man drops, forget the man, but as the man drops, the mountain drops with it, right? Key point. So the mountain must drop with the observer according to his circle, his spherical Earth. Now, at that point, we don't need to do any more. But remember that the top of the mountain has to drop with the observer as the altitude is decreased. The top of the mountain, okay? Now, I asked Ranty Rant, would he send me over the pictures that we took of a boat on the horizon, and it is clearly on the horizon. And the good thing about St. Bees is there is a really nice variable elevation change that you can get really easily. There's like slopes and stuff. Normally, when you're on the beach, you don't have access to slopes. But on this occasion, we do. St. Bees is pretty good for having a variable altitude ability to change your altitude. And what we noticed was this particular boat, when we were high, we were able to see the boat. And what we thought we would do is take interval photos as we descend and get down towards the beach. So essentially, we're doing the same as what Sly wanted us to do. We're doing that change, that elevation change. So the man drops down to the sea, then the top of the mountain dropped down with the man. Well, this is what you would expect. You would expect to see the top of the mast drop with the boat if the boat was dropping behind the curve of the Earth. Now, you're not going to see it in this because they're not set. The horizons are not set on line. But what I want you to, at this point, I just want you to observe what's physically happening to the boat. Now, the argument is it's disappearing from the bottom up. Now, we can see that there's a horizon there, and the boat seems to be disappearing behind this. There's a line. There's another line, another horizon that we can't see. But the boat is natural in its normal state above it, but below it, it appears to be getting mirrored, right? It seems to be getting miraged almost behind a wall of dirty air, refracted layer. Well, I don't know what that phrase is, but we see this, right? Now, there's no science to explain this. We don't get told the science because we're told we live on a ball and boats disappear from the bottom up. Now, as this gets further and further down, we can see that the boat is not dropping behind the curve of the Earth. It's vanishing. It's literally vanishing before your very eyes. But what Rancy's done is he's used the horizon, the actual hard water line, to put the boat back in, and he's lined it all up. Now, there are software out there where you can stack these images and keep the line of the horizon in the same place, and it'll line them all up for you, and you can show this as a nice animation. I don't know what that software's called. I don't have it. I don't know how to do it. This is the only way I can make my point. But what you can do is you can put a straight line across the top of the masts, right? And if it's the case that the observer drops down the mountain and that the mountain drops down with the observer because of the apparent curvature of the Earth or the claim of curved Earth, then you would expect the same thing to happen to this boat. If the boat is going to drop behind a curve, in other words, there's a bulge between you and it, then you would expect this to drop with the boat. And guess what doesn't happen? That mast, as this boat starts to disperse and do whatever it's doing, the mast is in the same place. It doesn't change. It isn't dropping. It isn't getting smaller. It's not shrinking. It's literally that mast is in the same place as the boat is disappearing and doing its thing. So at this point, I want to go back to Sly's video and I want to show you what Sly is claiming. Because is it consistent with real world evidence? Now you're looking right now on screen, you're looking at real world evidence.
We lived there, so.
You're looking at real world evidence of the mast not going down with the boat as we change our elevation. Okay, key point, the mast is not going down with the boat. So, but in Sly's video, look what he shows. The observer drops and the top of the mountain drops with the observer. But that doesn't happen in real world. The boat isn't disappearing from the bottom side up. That has to happen if there's a ball, right? But in real world, it isn't happening. So this peak dropping down doesn't happen. Here's the evidence, and I'm asking Sly to respond with what's going on here. And this is how I know, because no baller has ever mentioned this, right? He's the only one that's mentioned it. Now, we've known about this for a while, Nathan, me, and Ranty. We don't know what we're looking at, and we've described it as like dirty air. That's my phrase, dirty air. Or we've described it as layer of mirroring or mirage or refraction, or I don't know what this is. I just know that it's not consistent with the mast going down with the boat as we drop down our elevation. The top of the mast is in the same place, and up to the point where it seems to be getting mirrored, it's the same. It's normal. It isn't changing. But then at the bottom part of it, there's a line, an imaginary line that goes through it where it's literally being mirrored below itself for some reason, and it's something to do with the angle of observation. It's not to do with the curvature of the Earth because the mast isn't dropping. So shout out to Sly for his video that he's dedicated to us. Appreciate it. Love your work. I know that you know that it's not a ball. I know that you know that it's flat. And I know that because in your video, Sly, you actually removed that part of the mountain right at the very beginning. Now, I'm going to ask Nathan just to put Nathan on a spot a little bit. How do you interpret this part of his video where he removes this lower part of the mountain, right? This is not a part of the job that a baller would make when they're making this point. When they're making this point, this bit, that wouldn't happen. So how do you interpret that from your honest perspective, Nath? What do you think? Why do you think he's done that?
I don't know what is he representing it on a flat plane? Is this supposed to be a flat plane diagram or a sphere Earth diagram?
It's a flat plane diagram, and he's removed the bottom part of it to do with this band of refracted, mirrored, dirty line, whatever. This is consistent with flat Earth. This is our position. But why has he done it? Because he's acknowledging something here by doing it, and I don't know why he would do this on a ball. He's going to argue that it's the obstruction of the Earth caused by curvature, because it's removing the bottom of the thing, but he's doing it on a flat plane. So for me, it's a tip of the cap. He's acknowledging that this is what's going on. For me, he's supporting us there. I know we'll have a ball Earth interpretation of what's going on, but the fact that he put this in is like, ooh, that nobody has done that before on a flat plane. They all draw it like this, but for some reason he's removed the bottom part of it, and I'm like, Sly knows. Would you agree?
I've always thought that.
Sly knows, and this is the proof. This is the admission. That little bit there, Sly knows. Whatever we're looking at in the boat, and it's reflecting itself on like seeming to disappear from the bottom. That bit there tells me that Sly knows it's a peak of the cap. So thank you very much, Sly. You've inadvertently told me that you know that the Earth's flat. Now, I'm sure you've got a perfectly valid nonsense excuse for it to explain to the ballers, but I know that you know that the Earth's flat, mate. It's that simple. However, in real world, the top of the mast of the boat did not drop as we changed our elevation. As we descended, the boat did not drop. It just started to reflect upon itself and disappear behind this band of dirty air, this refraction, this whatever this is. And I'm asking you, Sly, to answer that question. What is the current science to explain what we see? The top of the boat did not drop. It's the same with when Red's rhetoric and Jeranism were having their back and forth. Reds showed the exact same thing. He showed the sailboat. He showed that it basically, the top of the sailboat was in the exact same place, but it started to stretch and change its position, and it was disappearing what looked like from the bottom up, but actually it was being reflected. It was reflecting on itself. The exact same thing happened with Red's rhetoric and Jeranism. So, Sly, thanks for the video, but the question's back on you. What is the science to explain why we're seeing this layer of refraction, and why did you remove it out of your picture here? Straightforward question, Sly. And if you're in chat watching, I've not got chat open, but if you're in chat watching, I encourage you to join so you can talk us through this, because this for me is tip of the cap. You know, it's flat. Nobody else would do this on this explanation, Sly, only you. Now, enough of Sly. That's Sly dealt with. Now, so shout outs to Ranty for his raw imagery. Now I'm going to respond. I'm going to deal with Miles the Liar Davis from yesterday. Now, if you didn't watch yesterday's show, I'll bring you up to speed. Basically, at the close of play yesterday, we got to this picture, and I was asking people what did they think the value below these rocks would be in terms of the height. We've got a calculated and measured angle, a calculated and measured height from the lens of the camera down to the rocks, and Miles accepts it. He has since changed his position slightly, or told me that I got it slightly wrong by saying he accepts the maths, but he doesn't accept the accuracy of the maths. And I'll come back to that at the end. I've credited somewhere at the end. But if you didn't watch it yesterday, basically, I'll just play through this, and I'll quickly annotate it so I don't kill the time. I just want to bring people up that's not seen it from yesterday.
Anthony has measured the height of that bank at 19.5 feet. I don't dispute the measurement that he got. I accept the measurement that he got, and I say that in this particular video clip.
So he accepts the measurement, but he's told me that, well, yeah, I accept the measurement, but I don't accept your accuracy, which I'll come back to in a sec.
I'm basing my claim on Ordnance Survey map data, and I listened to his claim that he's measured it at the bank to be 20 feet. And I say, well, that could be right. And if the sea level below the bank was another 15 feet.
Well, 15 feet plus 20 feet is 35, but Miles's claim is 40. So he's diluted that there to give him a bit of wiggle room.
Then his measurement of 20 feet agrees with mine.
No, Miles, it doesn't agree with yours, because my measurement of 20 feet plus the 15 feet you want it to be doesn't equal 40.
The big question for me is, where is the lie, Anthony? What lie has been told here?
So here's the lie. In his original video, Miles said that he was at 12 meters of observer height. This is what he actually said.
And so we've got a viewer height of I'm gonna say 12. I'm gonna err on the side of caution there a little bit. Working on the basis of our viewer height of 12 meters above actual sea level at the time.
All right, so he's erring on the side of caution with his actual height above sea. Now, what he then goes to do is present how he calculated it from mean sea level, right? So that in itself is a contradiction. He claims he's at the actual height above sea, but then does it based on mean sea level and an arithmetic, which basically puts him back at the height that he was at the start, bar a couple of meters, which isn't the height above water. It's the height above sea level with calculated adjustments based on mean sea level, based on perceptions. And he didn't present any evidence whatsoever to show where the actual height of the water was. At the time, he told us that there was no evidence to support that position, but since he's now changed his position, he said, no, actually, I have a picture. So he bandies that round in a sec, after previously telling us that he didn't have any evidence of the high tide. Anyway.
I don't think viewer height is going to make a huge difference here.
So Miles doesn't think that viewer height is going to make a huge difference, but he previously states that you have to be absolutely accurate with your observer height. So he's flip-flopping again, because he's flip-flopping and that's what he does. He makes it sound persuasive because he's doing the Tony Blair thing with the weapons of mass destruction. And he's basically making a deception sound plausible and logical and tangible, which is what we all want when we're being persuaded or deceived. Tony Blair, Miles Davis. Tony Blair, Miles Davis. Same thing.
Yeah, we're somewhere between 10 and 14, 15 meters above.
So it's somewhere between 10, 14, 15 meters above water height, right? How vague do you want to be? I mean, 10 to 15 meters. I mean, that's a huge band of variableness, but he claims that you must be accurate with your observer height above water. So, I mean, how accurate is he being there? He's got 10 to 15 meters of variation. That's absolute nonsense. So this is what the kind of guy is making it sound persuasive, and he's talking very quietly so you don't quite catch it. But he actually says between 10 and 15 meters there, and demands that we're accurate, and criticizes me when I don't give him GPS position on something that makes no difference because I've already shown it. But anyway, I digress.
Above the actual sea level, and I think 12 is a very reasonable estimate.
So he's going with 12 above the actual sea level. Okay. This is Miles doubling down.
I can also just share a screen to show you where the tide was when we were actually filming.
Now, this didn't previously exist. When originally asked, Miles did not have this information. He's now since got it, and I question where he's got it from. But he's never going to be able to prove it because EXIF data is falsifiable, and I wouldn't put it past Miles to falsify it. So there's no point asking for EXIF data, and there's no point in him saying yes, he's got it, and showing it because it's falsifiable, right? So for the same reason I didn't release mine, and I wouldn't release mine, I don't want the EXIF data, and I'm not going to ask him for it, and I wouldn't accept it if he produced it because it's falsifiable. It's really poor it's really poor standard, or really, there's no credibility in EXIF data.
Bro.
This is a still taken on a different camera at the time that we were actually filming. You can see.
Now, bear in mind, he said he didn't have this before.
Hope that it is near to sunset here.
Right, now he's saying it's near to sunset, right? But we can't see the sun, so we can't make that determination ourselves. But at high tide, when he says that he actually did the observation, it was an hour and 8 minutes, or an hour and 16 minutes, or whatever it was. I can't remember the exact. It was an hour from high tide and sunset. Now he's referencing sunset, but he's not referencing high tide, and they weren't the same. So he's now he's pulling you away from high tide at this point. He should be referencing high tide. He should be saying this was high tide. He's not. He's saying this was just around sunset. That's pulling you away from high tide. That's an important part of that because it's inconsistent with his original story.
I have a precise time for this photograph being taken, if you like, and you can see it, and it is.
So he has a precise time, but we don't. It's no use because he can't prove it with EXIF data because it's falsifiable.
Hey, Arwin.
At the time we were filming, which
Hello.
Morning, Arwin.
Was a few minutes after high tide, and I've got timestamps for the video timings that we took. As you can see, the water level is still down the pebbles on the beach and not up near to the grass bank or the rocks below the grass bank.
Which we're going to test and prove on Saturday because that's exactly where we think the water level is. But now listen to this segment.
This beach here, the pebbles on this beach slope quite steeply. It doesn't look like it could, by comparison with the bank, but there's still it's a relatively steeply sloped. There is a drop down there of several feet from the rocks down to the high water mark. On the basis of the tide heights and mean sea level, I have calculated.
So what he does here, he makes a calculation. We can ignore the calculation because he comes back to 12 meters.
A 50-meter contour line, and we have 10 meters plus 1.76 meters, which is 11.76 meters, plus the height that the camera was on the tripod. Well, we'll call it a meter, and we'll have 12.76 meters, which works out at just over 40 feet, which was my claim.
I agree, it was his claim. Now, at the end of the show yesterday, we left it at this. What we know that the measured height between the camera lens down to the rocks is 20 feet, 19.5 feet. We added an extra foot on it because I didn't go right to the shore level because I couldn't get a straight line. It was affecting the tape measure because the drop on the thing. So we added an extra foot on it. It's 20.5 feet, okay? We asked people, what value do you think the drop would be of beyond the rocks? So, for example, Rick, basically, Miles claims that there's 20 feet here. Now, to support Miles, you've got to give a value of around about 20 feet. Alan B says 20 feet. They Lie, Ohio, 20 feet. but Steve Anthony says 10 feet. And I think that's an honest answer from Steve. Me, Nathan, Arwin, around about the 6, 5, 4 figure. Paul Voigt refused to give an estimation because he doesn't want to throw his friend under the bus. Sly Sparkane refused to give an estimation because he doesn't want to throw his friend under the bus. Tony Vincenzo thinks it's 23 feet. Nick has no L. There's a rock on the beach. It's quite a big rock. It's not likely to be moved. You're not going to be able to relocate that easily. We're going to use this rock as a reference point on the weekend because we're going to see where the water goes up to in relation to that rock. Now, the point was we've got this part wrapped up. It's pretty much sorted at around about 20.5 feet. He needs another 20 feet to get this. Now, since yesterday's show, this is new, right? So you're bang up to date with what Miles's lies are. Right now, this is what Miles is saying.
This beach here, the pebbles on this beach slope quite steeply. It doesn't look like it could, by comparison with the bank, but there's still, it's a relatively steeply sloped. There is a drop down there of several feet from the rocks down to the high water mark.
So remember, quite steeply, he says. Now, Miles released a video yesterday. And in the video, the only bit that was of any use to us whatsoever from an empirical point of view was this little snippet of a few seconds that I've had to play in reverse and I've had to stretch it out for a bit longer. Remember his words, quite steeply.
This beach here, the pebbles on this beach slope quite steeply, quite steeply, quite steeply.
Does that look quite steeply to you?
Quite steeply.
Now remember, we've got 20 feet for the hill down to these pebbles that are here. This section, not these rocks. The pebbles behind them, that's where I'm stood measuring. So we've got 20 feet, 20.5 feet down to the bottom of here. Miles needs another 20 feet to this rock to have a valid 40 feet elevation above water. That was his claim.
It doesn't look like it could, by comparison with the bank, but there's still, it's a relatively steeply sloped. There is a drop down there of several feet from the rocks down to the high water mark.
Now, basically, if this is 20 feet down to where that camera is stood on the tripod, because that's where we put our camera when we did it, so 20 feet down to there, Miles has got to get another 20 feet down this beach, right? This is way further out than what the water was, but you can see that the elevation is clearly nowhere near. It's nowhere near, and this is way further deeper down, deeper in towards the deeper waters, if there was water here. The water came to about here. Now you can see that there is a little drop there, but this changes every time the tide comes in. It varies. Sometimes it's a shallower point, sometimes it's more severe. And on Miles's evidence, there's nothing to suggest that there's a sharp slope there the way he describes it. There may be, but he doesn't show it. So we can't prove that assertion, and we know it's a variable. It changes every time the tide comes in. However,
quite steeply, quite steeply, quite steeply.
I don't think steeply could be described to be seeing what we're seeing there, and it certainly doesn't account for 20 feet. Anyway, that's what he needs. Miles needs 20 feet. Now, what's then happened since? As you can see, there is no evidence whatsoever of a sharp ridge that just looks like a shallow gradient, but that's how shallow the gradient actually is. And I'll give him that there is a possibility of a bit of a drop there, but he doesn't show it he can't prove that point because it's not evident in his picture. Now, what's happened since yesterday? So at that point, Miles still fails. Now, what's happened since that point is if you go to Miles's channel, you can see that all the ballers are basically swarming round him like ants round an ant's nest. You know when you attack an ant's nest with boiling water and you pour it in and then they're like all of a sudden, all these millions of ants all come out of it trying to attack the aggressor. Well, that's what's happening right now on Miles's video. They're all coming out and supporting him and basically like acting like ants, right? Now, this picture is from the Rumpus. Now, I'm going to ask you guys to interpret what's being shown here. He claims that the tape is supposedly 57 feet in length. Well, I was really clear with that, and it can't be argued, and you can't use the word supposedly to try and dilute my point. It's black and white, Rumpus. You can't change it. There's no argument or discussion or wiggle room on that. It is 57. It's fact. Can't be changed, Rumpus. So the word supposedly is seeking simply to try and dilute my claim, my evidence, my position. Nonsense. Now, what he's done here is I used the vertical staff, right? Now, if you run a vertical line up, you can see that it's like a degree, maybe 2 degrees off vertical. It's not absolutely perfectly vertical, but it's close enough. Now, in the video that I actually did it, my actual video, not this part of the video, but the other part where I actually did it, it's nearer to vertical than what this is. So he's picked a favorable non-vertical part. However, what he's done is he's added this yellow line in, and what the yellow line is according to Rumpus, this yellow line is an adjustment for the horizon, because he said the camera's tilted. Now, that is a credible argument, but it's totally and utterly unnecessary if you've got a fixed vertical. Now, he's added a horizontal in to try and make the vertical look nonsense, right? But if you have a vertical in the picture, you don't need a horizontal. That's why we were putting a staff in the ground to give us a vertical. Now, on the actual picture that I did the vertical on, it was vertical. On this one, it isn't vertical. And by putting in a deduced horizon, it makes it look worse, because he's making this is literally conjecture. What he's done is he's had to use this little bit of horizon here, which is land, not water. He's had to use this little bit of horizon here to form a horizon to give him this deduced horizon. And even if this was done accurately, which it wasn't, because if you extend the line out, it doesn't match the line that he's put in, it's still conjecture, right? It's unnecessary because the picture that I did it on is vertical. Now, the problem with that is there is no reason for him to change it. He's literally changing the evidence to try and suit his premise, right? Now, there's a program called Rotation Pilot, and in the program it says, basically, with Rotation Pilot, you no longer have to guess on how many degrees you should rotate your image to adjust a visual slope. Now, obviously, that's what Rumpus has done. He's had to guess how much what's he got. He wants to compensate for the fact that the camera is not sat perfectly horizontal with the horizon. He's ignored the vertical aspect that it actually is consistent with. However, you can basically says you should rotate your image to adjust a visual slope, often appearing on amateur photographs. Set a vertical or a horizontal axle in the software, and it'll do the rest. But see how it says you can set a vertical or a horizontal. You don't need to do it on horizontal, Rumpus. If you've got a given vertical, which we did, we had a vertical, not on this picture, but on the picture that I actually used, it was vertical. If you do it on a fixed vertical, Rumpus, then you have the angle here, and it's the external angle. So you have that set in stone, can't be argued with. You measure it, and it gives you a value. From there, you can get the internal angle. You don't need a horizontal. What he's done here is he's tried to fudge the maths, fudge the evidence with maths to make it more, because he needs that angle to go from 20 up to 30. And the way he's done it is he's conjectured a horizon line based on this horizon up here, and that's land, by the way, that slopes off. So you don't actually know what the horizon is, because you can't tell where the water is. You don't know the horizon, but he's guessed it. He's guessed it to try and make it look fudgy, and he's claiming that it supports 30 degrees. Now, if you actually do the maths on this, it turns out to be 28.7, I think it was, on the maths from memory. But he's rounded it up to 30, right, based on an inaccurate, like a conjecture line. It's a deduced horizon based on nothing. And he's rounded it up to 30 to support his pal. Now, the point is, he already had a vertical. So there's no need to do this, Rumpus, and he knows that. So the question becomes, why did you do this? You have a known vertical. Is it that Rumpus didn't know you could do it on a known vertical, which in my picture was vertical? Or was he fudging it deliberately to try and support his mate? Now, here's the thing. Rumpus claims that, apart from me being a twat, he claims that if I go back with a spirit level and actually measure it, and I'm going to do this this weekend just for Rumpus, I'm going to do the exact same thing, and I'm going to stand in this place. I'm going to do the exact same measurement again. And I'm going to show that my 20 degrees angled measured angle wasn't wildly inaccurate. And I'm going to show that his 30 degrees, which is actually 28.7, I think it was, is nowhere near accurate. So, Rumpus, I'm going to call you a liar. I'm going to say that you've literally fudged this evidence to try and support with maths, to try and support your friend, based on this deduced horizon that's totally unnecessary and inaccurate at best. And it was based on a horizon that the only part you can see is this, which is land that is sloping down in any event and is literally nonsense. So don't try fudging maths with me. Don't try fudging evidence physics. You guys think that you've got all the answers when it comes to maths. This is exactly what you're doing. You're applying nonsense maths to this position to try and support the assertion that Miles isn't wrong. No, guess what? Rumpus is lying. He's fudging the evidence here. He's trying to support his mate. And this angle stands because we had a vertical when I did it. You didn't need a horizontal based on a deduced horizon that's inaccurate in any event. And you didn't need to round up your maths to support your mate. Rumpus, you're lying. You are literally lying. You've made this up. Now it's based on good science, right? It is credible. However, the way he's done it is really wishy-washy. There's no accuracy whatsoever in this line, and it's there simply to try and support the assertion that there's 30 degrees when there's only 20. Rumpus, you're lying. Anyway, that's the end of the presentation. That's the end of the formalities. You are bang up to date with where we're up to right now. Rumpus is using maths to fudge figures and make it sound something it isn't. And Miles is still a liar. He's no higher than 25 feet, and he's claiming 40. Anyway, that's the end of my ramblings. Arwin, how are we today, sir?
Me, I'm doing fine.
Glad you're still
I'm
awake.
echoing.
I thought I might have sent you to sleep.
No, I'm fine. No, yesterday it's not like a permanent. I'm not gonna complain about you guys rolling that ball back up the hill every day. It was just something that was on my heart, and I wanted to speak out about it. That it was said, and I'm perfectly fine now. So
Did you see
yeah,
the
you keep on
Sly
rolling up
Sparkane?
that ball. Just keep on doing it. I understand. I read back I saw back the hangout of yesterday, and I heard a lot better what Nathan was saying, and yeah, I agree. I agree what his stance was. So I agree. Just keep on doing it. Yeah, I personally don't really have the patience to get as nitty gritty as you guys are doing, but I fully support your efforts here.
I've actually
And I
changed my
really
attitude
hope
since you
it
said
will
that,
get
Owen.
to something really good eventually.
I've actually changed my attitude since you said that and discussed it with
Really,
Anthony
Nathan?
since. So my attitude adjustment has come directly from what you said, and that is that, in my humble opinion, this observation of wind turbines made by Miles Davis is actually quite low priority in the scheme of things. So it may be the case that when we go up there this weekend, we get to addressing Miles Davis' claim in a bit more detail. But for me, it's a very low priority.
Now, me and Nathan don't agree on this point. I want to
You're
discredit
confusing me.
Miles. Not
Every
because
time
I,
I
Miles.
switch around, you switch around. What is this?
Well,
Making
it's
the show
context,
interesting.
isn't it? It's
No, I'm
remember,
agreeing
it's
with you.
context,
I
isn't it?
agreed with your sentiments from yesterday, and we're spending a lot of time pushing a ball up the hill. And when you put it in that context, you think, well, what's it going to achieve if we get the ball to the top of the hill and we win and it stays there? Well, in this instance, with this observation, virtually nothing. You know, that's my attitude. Whereas the 35 feet on Google and 52 feet on Google claimed observation points are far more useful to our cause and our claims. So for me, they are top priority.
Okay. Okay, in that sense, then we have come to an agreement. But yeah, I really didn't want to push you too much yesterday. I just felt it needed to be said. That was all. And
Yeah,
I
and I
understand
thanked you.
that you have
I
to go
thanked you
into
too.
this detail. So
Yeah, I got in touch
But-
after the show and thanked you for it, Arwin. You know, I am very open to criticism and I want to hear, you know, I said to you, your sentiments echoed a lot of people's in the chat. So, you know, I want to hear that stuff. It's, you know, I don't care if it's bad or, you know, a criticism of the show or whatever. I don't care. You know, I've said it from the start. If you come on and you want to criticise me and my techniques, you're welcome to do so. And the same applies to anything being said on the show. If it's getting tedious, fine, tell us. But we'll then give our explanation as to why we're covering the minutiae, the detail, because it's necessary in some instances, although it does get boring. So I'd rather hear that, though.
no, indeed. But yeah, it was mostly me getting worried that the regular flat earther public was just drifting away. Like they didn't want to hear the same damn thing over and over again. And it was basically only the most lunatic ballers that are completely obsessed with trying to disprove us that would hang around eventually. So that was my worry,
Fair
that
enough.
we'd just be surrounded by lunatics only, and all the rest of the flat earths would be staying away. And yeah, I don't know, it's just not as amusing unless, yeah, I guess you're
It isn't, but you've got to give credit where credit's due to. And Ranty did this, and I've done this already. I don't know if Anthony will, but nevertheless, you give credit to Miles. You know, he's gone out, he's done this observation, he's put the effort in, and as Ranty phrased it, he's not a keyboard warrior. He's doing practical work in this regard to try and debunk us, and that has to be commended. The same applies to Rumpus. When I tip my hat to him, he put a lot of work in, and that is, you know, it deserves being commended. And it shows how seriously they take this.
But on the other hand, do they really deserve that type of credit if we catch them actively mechanizing and lying?
That's my point.
Then they're really just putting more effort in trying to break things, really. Is that,
I agree with
is that also commendable?
Well, it's not commendable to lie, and we wouldn't commend people for lying. But if they do, and we're focused on the minutiae, we can point out where and how, and that's what we're doing. But the criticism for you is, well, when you're pointing out how and why they've lied, and it's always going to be very tricky, slippery, whatever word you want to use, you've got to get into the nitty-gritty of the details to expose that. So every time they lie, I hope they, you know, get as frustrated as they do and threaten to mass spam the channel. Hello, I'm a moron. How are you doing?
Oh,
can you hear us?
What I'll do, Nath, I'll drop out of this. Hang on.
Depending
Depending on what happens in the next 5 seconds.
I've kicked him because he didn't say hello.
Yeah, because I think Arwin might... Do you know what? It might be better if we just invite... Bring Arwin, if you drop out of the call and then join on Skype, that would leave the lobby for anybody on the baller side that wants to go and play with themselves in the lobby and snipe each other out. That's it.
He's all right for now. No one sniped him
No,
out,
yeah,
so
I'm
just,
fine.
You know, if he gets sniped, then join on Skype. You know, great.
Maybe Alan B wants to join.
Maybe.
He's always kind of fun.
As always, the doors are open to everyone. Everyone is welcome.
Right. But
Sly
anyway, you were saying that you're now having a new project that is on the horizon. Pun meant. That you're now going to approach. You were saying?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of different things that I think Anthony and Ranty want to achieve with their cameras. I mean, I've got an iPhone, you know, I've got no sophisticated camera equipment whatsoever. I do have a telescope. Whether or not I go and get it, I don't know. But I may well get that telescope if I get an opportunity before this weekend to take that up. But yeah, there's a couple of things that are potentially back on the table that had been formally taken off the table, one of them being Northern Ireland. So in essence, we've since published someone else's photo that was taken maybe 7 or 8 years ago of the Isle of Man, and Snaefell, sort of midpoint in the island, if you like, was 68 miles away, almost 70 miles away. And I'm sure there's, if we were to take the measure and I look a bit more closely, I'm sure we'd get 70, 71, 72 miles in that image on a very clear day from about 500 feet altitude. Correct me if I'm wrong. But there's a very high point next to the observation points that Anthony and Miles Davis have used. Hello, Flat Earth Destroyed. Can you say a quick hello?
Hello, how you doing? Quick question. So I take it you're ignoring Miles's 130 hypotenuse measurement. Now you're focusing on this, and that's what this is all about. And that's why Riley rage quit last time, didn't he? Because the truth smacked him right between the eyes. So you can't deal with that.
Ignoring Miles what?
Change your topic. Your goalpost changed again.
What's your question?
What was it you said that we were ignoring?
Yeah, that's what. Yeah, what's your question?
Has he gone?
His sound was breaking up. I wonder.
Give him a second. He might just be struggling with audio or something. We'll wait for him to hopefully come back and ask us a specific question. He thinks we're ignoring something. That's the bit I caught.
Yeah, he said, why is it you're ignoring the Miles's something or other and focusing on this? Well, I'm not aware that we're ignoring something of Miles's. If there's new evidence out there or something that you feel that we're ignoring, bring it. Show us where we're ignoring it and we'll address it. I'm not ignoring any part of Miles's nonsense. I love all of it. He's the gift that keeps on giving. The more he does, the better it gets for us, because he drops himself in big holes that he can't get out of. And I demonstrated that before, because his little 3 or 4 second part of his video that we presented showed that there was definitely no way that there was an extra 20 feet there. Yet you guys all think that for some reason he's still credible. And all that's happening is all the ants are coming out the nest and they're all supporting him and holding his willy, saying, "Oh, it's okay, Miles. We're on your side. Great job, Miles. Great job."
Well, simultaneously, we're told that this show's getting boring and we shouldn't be addressing these things. So we've got the guy on the panel saying, "Why aren't you looking at something else of Miles's?" And we've spent the last 2 or 3 episodes going through the details of Miles's bullshit. So what exactly do you think we're ignoring?
Is he still in or is he dropped?
Still there, just seems to be ignoring us.
Should we call him a coward and see if we can get him to come out of his hole? Or should we wait patiently?
Anything? Flat Earth destroyed? Anything at all?
John Watson said, "They're not ants, it's flies on a turd."
Ants.
So anyway,
that's where your second observation was taken from, and that's where all the composite images were taken from. This whole thing going on about the 20-foot business is just a change, a diversionary tactic used by yourself. Focus on what you need to focus to prove your point. That's the issue you have. That's
we're debunking someone else's point.
Proves you wrong.
Don't seem to be keeping up. This has nothing to do with the Isle of Man observation, and everything to do with a claim that is apparently supportive of a sphere Earth made by Miles Davis. So this has nothing to do with those observations. You understand that, right? We're looking at someone else's observation of something different. Do you get that? The world doesn't revolve around the Isle of Man, although you Globers seem to think that everything we talk about is Isle of Man. Again, long, prolonged silence after a very specific question is levelled at Flat Earth Destroyed. That was a new point, by the way. You didn't in any way actually clarify any of the gish gallop that you came in and said. You've just started a new point, just to point that out to you. So I'll ask you the first question again.
Now, he was
what exactly
playing a
do you
video.
feel we have ignored? What precisely have we ignored?
I don't know if it's you, Nath, but I'm not hearing him speaking at all. And he came in mid-sentence on that last outburst. I don't know if it's
That
because I'm on
last
Skype.
outburst was him playing a video clip. He's not talking. The first time he was talking, now he was just playing a video. It was not his voice.
Let's just get rid of him.
There he goes.
That was pretty convincing, though, if that was a tape. I didn't pick up on that. Well done, Arwin.
I'm not sure.
No, it was not his voice. It was not the same.
Fair enough.
I think he was trying to play a Rumpus video or something like that.
Al K says, "This comes directly down to one thing. Lily is incompetent." Yeah, Al K claimed that the height of that mound was 20 feet as well. He said it was at least 20 feet, 20-something. For some reason, Miles thinks that there's another 20 feet below where Al K was stood with his rod. And I wondered whether Al K knew that Miles was sighting 40 feet and why you didn't call him out on it, Al, when you knew it was nowhere near 40 feet. Are you collaborating with your dishonest warrior? Or did he work as a lone renegade?
Hey, by the way, I just got a new idea of something that could be interesting to work out, considering optics.
Speaking of liars, Riley, do you remember when you said you threw a 66-foot tape down the same cliff that Miles did and it didn't hit the bottom, and then you changed your story to say it hit the bottom and you had tape to spare? That's a complete lie.
Actually, this is a recording, isn't it?
You lied 100%. We all heard you say
this is the same recording.
Yeah, it's just a recording.
This is a recording, isn't it?
It's a troll playing a recording. It's not a person.
Yeah, that's what it is.
That's all they've got.
Anyway,
reruns. They're throwing reruns at us. That's brilliant. Throwing reruns at us. Okay. Marvellous.
Yeah.
So right now, let's just be clear, right? Sly's going to answer why it was that on his model when he played it, that he removed the bottom part of the mountain, right? And that I credited was a tip of the cap. So if you didn't catch it, Sly, go and watch the first part of the hangout, because I addressed your video directly and I've left you with 2 questions. The second question is, why doesn't the mountain drop? Oh, by the way, GeoStreamer, if you're still about, do you mind if I use the GIF that you've sent me in the chat? I'd like to use that, please.
Can I please finish what I was saying?
Sorry,
Arwin.
Yeah. No, that's fine. The troll with the tape recorder just popped in, so that was a distraction. But I had an idea. It's something I would like to find out, kind of. And that is, well, we have figured out by now how perspective works. That there is this apparent slant at the first horizon, as we call it, and that after that there's a refraction zone. But what I would like to find out if is sorry is if it would be possible to figure out if it depends kind of on what type of lens is watching into the distance. If this slant point differs in distance depending on the lens. This would be very interesting, and also it would show that it really is not a physical curve but an optical effect. So for example, if you take two cameras that have different different, how do you say, sharpness, different zooming capacity, and then use both these cameras to zoom in on, say, a watery horizon, perhaps with an island in the distance, and boats. That would be great if there were boats. If you then can film that and see if, depending on the lenses, the refraction point, the point where the refraction zone starts, would be different in the same time of day from the same angle with different cameras. I think that if we could prove that it is purely an optical effect, that would bring even a bigger crush to the curve of the globe, basically. Just an idea.
Just answering Sly, I'm not going to use Geo's GIF without expressed consent from Geo, because that would be potentially a copyright strike, and I wouldn't like to risk that on Nathan's channel without expressed consent from Geo. Now, Nath, would you mind sharing my screen? I'd like to reassert the question to Sly in reference to the actual evidence, because...
So, Riley, thanks for completely ignoring what I just said and distracting to something entirely different. Thanks for completely walking over me. Didn't you hear something? I just said something. Could you perhaps reply to me instead of a troll in chat?
Okay. I was reading and responding to Sly, setting up the slide for the next. So the answer to your question is I didn't listen or didn't answer or hear your question because I was concentrating on something else. However, I give way.
Oh,
you can have the mic.
Can I address you, Alwyn? Because I was listening. Yes. So, in all honesty, I don't think it will make a difference. I'm making a prediction as opposed to addressing your very cogent point, which is basically that if you had two different cameras pointing at, say, the lighthouse at Morgold, would you have a different band of refraction, or would it be exactly the same? And I suspect...
Well, that is what I'm wondering. If it depends on the type of camera lensing, if it's not even like the refraction zone will always be there, because it seems to be there in every observation. Like if there is sight, if there is something that can observe, then there will be a refraction zone as a natural side effect. But it's just interesting to see if there is a difference in where the refraction zone starts, basically. If you could prove that using different lenses in the same location at the same time of day.
I was so quick to say that I don't think it'll make a difference is because last time Anthony and Branty were at St. Bees, we were Skyping back and forth frequently and basically in good contact, and I could see a lot of what they were looking at. Obviously, it's through an iPad screen or whatever. But at one stage, Anthony held up his phone and took a picture of the back of Ranty while he was taking stacked images of the Morgold Lighthouse. And he said, here you go, here's Ranty actually taking that particular picture that I was asking about, or that series of pictures right now. So I get the snapshot, zoom in on it, and sure enough, you can see, exactly the same outline, obviously in much, much, much lower resolution than Ranty was getting on his super high camera, but he's zooming in on it. But in terms of the artifacts, I can only assume, or I can only deduce from that what you would get is exactly the same if you had different zoom lengths. I'm also pretty certain, again, this is going back about a month or maybe even 6 weeks, when Anthony's missus showed me pictures from her camera, totally different focal length, totally different zoom, totally different camera, and the effects, the actual, what you could see in the image wasn't presented at such close range, but the effects were the same. and that was glaringly obvious. So from my personal experience looking at images I've been presented with, from an iPhone, a P900 and a D5, I think is the other camera, or whatever, you know, a different SLR camera rather than a point and shoot camera, they were all pretty much of a muchness in terms of what they presented. So I'm pretty sure it's down to the distance that you're looking at and the altitude that you observe from. And it's a very interesting point which I hope gets hammered home when we actually do the presentation of the flat Earth model of Isle of Man, which is to say that the observation height makes a massive difference to how much stuff gets cut off from the bottom, which is what Ranty showed with the boats. So I will be positively encouraging people to get a bit higher. Don't put your tripods in the water, which is pretty much what Sly and various other people are trying to get everyone to do. Well, if you could do it in the water, you'd prove flat Earth. Oh, piss off. Get higher. Do these observations above the circle of confusion that they want in their images, or they want in our images when we present them. They want the bottom cut off stuff. So get a little bit higher and get above that, and get above that refraction zone. Exactly, that first horizon point that you're talking about is where the cutoff point comes. Now, I'm not that great at describing this when I haven't got pictures to reference or Chris's model in front of me, because it's really clear when it's being explained to me, of course, but to be able to parrot it back verbatim it's not completely solidified in my mind yet. And I'm sure Anthony will agree. That's why he continues to call it dirty air, even though Chris has probably explained it to us about half a dozen times. It's difficult to wrap your head around it, but hopefully when us, the laymen, get it, we will be able to paraphrase it in such a way that an audience can understand it. And it's far easier when you've got a model to show it.
I think I got a pretty clear way to explain how it works, what you're actually seeing, the slant, basically where the refraction zone starts. Everything after that goes on in a straight line at an angle. So, or an apparent angle at least. So it keeps on going from then on in a straight line. And that makes it a slant, like one single corner that starts at where the refraction zone starts, basically. That is what you get optically out of it.
You and Arev both did. Arev's was a bit more, you know, he was doing it freehand in a paint program, but the effect he was describing is exactly that. And I'm sure you've done it once with a visual, a pictorial example as well, have you not?
Yeah, I did a basic drawing. It's not very good, but
no, it was good. Yeah. Don't put it down. I remember it. It was good.
No, yeah, it was technically correct, but it was
exactly
just
that. But that's all that matters.
More interesting to look at.
Sure, it wasn't visually exciting, but who cares? It was accurate and it explained it well. I remember it reasonably well, even though it's probably about 2 or 3 weeks ago. But yes, you know, you understand this concept, but a lot of people don't, including me. Not enough to explain it.
Okay, well, I would love to dedicate some special time to explain this more on your show or on a special segment if you'd like that.
Definitely.
No problem. I would love to explain it more. It's getting more solid in my mind how it really works, so I'm getting better at explaining it. And with some visual assistance, that would work out really well, I think. But as for the what I just suggested is, you're basically saying that you think that's very unlikely that the refraction zone, where the starting point is, that it would differ depending on the observer, that it would always be the same, that it's completely and only dependent on the air quality and the height of the observer, and that there is no difference in the refraction zone where it appears to start depending on the observer. That's what you're saying.
I suspect so. I mean, based on all the examples that I've looked at, and Ranty's example going down the hill and having the boat cut off, and then going up the hill and seeing more of the boat, that's the conclusion I can draw. Again, you know, there's been plenty of observations of the same stuff that I've looked at in recent days, and yeah, I'm happy to, at this stage, go out on a limb and draw that conclusion that it would make no difference. You know, the only thing that would make a difference is the clarity of the day, i.e. the weather, and how high you are. And your actual observation ability gets worse as you get lower. And there's probably a tipping point. I don't know what that tipping point is.
What is beyond that slant. That's logical. And the rest, yeah, it seems to be purely dependent on the lensing effect of the air. And while we know that refraction officially, and the standard refraction, which is the most common thing around, that's why it's standard and not non-standard, as the ballers love to reference everything to, that the standard refraction basically causes light to bend upward, and that is what causes this apparent slant effect, which could be mistaken for a curvature.
Yeah, it's a co-opting of exactly that
But
effect.
it all seems to depend on a lensing effect, almost like as water in an aquarium. It's well known when you look into an aquarium that's filled up with water, that the thickness of the water bends whatever you see pretty vividly. It usually looks like the end of the aquarium that filled up looks much closer than it is.
Cool. Did you see the meme that Anthony just played of the boat at different heights, different observer heights? Did you see that, Owen? You're breaking up a little bit. I don't know if you've got an internet connection problem. While he's sorting that out, Anthony, you're screen sharing currently if you wanted to carry on while Owen gets his connection back, hopefully. You're on mute, I think, Anthony. Oh. Eleanor, come back in the lounge, please.
Yo, what the hell?
I just had an internet connection problem, that was all.
Oh, okay.
Temporarily lost my internet. See if I can get Anthony back. Bear with me a second. Hello.
What happened?
I just lost my internet connection. It's going to reconnect to what's it called? The recording in 32 seconds. So I'll give you a countdown when it gets to about 5 seconds, just so you know. But basically, I just lost Wi-Fi. I'm hoping that it's reconnected and everything sorted itself out in enough time for the live show to continue to be live. But that's like dependent on YouTube. I think they give you like 2 or 3 minutes. But 10 seconds we'll be back live, just so you know. My camera.
By the way,
Hold on, Owen.
after
Hopefully we're back
yesterday's
live.
hangout,
Oh.
I got like 2 comments from flat earthers responding elaborately.
Literally told you in advance that we were going to get at about a 10-second countdown. As soon as that comes in, so I can say hello to the live audience, you talk.
Yes.
Oh well.
No, I'm
Welcome
just
back.
wanting
Hopefully
to be
we're...
on screen.
Bear with me, Alwyn. I just need to reintroduce the show. So hopefully we're
Yes.
still live.
Yes.
Hopefully we're
It seems
still
to be
live.
going.
You do it for me, Alwyn. Don't worry about it. How you doing, John? Can you hear us? Hello, John. Can you hear us? Maybe he just joined to snipe. So with a bit of luck, we're still on the air on the same
Yeah,
show.
it's still going. The same YouTube is still going.
Oh, brilliant. Excellent. So I don't
Yes.
have to piddle around.
Yeah, you
with a
got
new
lucky
show.
there. It was a serious internet crash that just happened.
Yeah, I just lost my Wi-Fi. No, I think it started streaming 1 minute ago, according to this, so damn it. Thank you for ruining my
I was
intro.
afraid your account was like cut off or something.
Right, let's just pop you on mute for a second, Darwin, because I do actually need to do a re-intro. So, welcome back to Flat Earth Debate. If you are new to this channel or you have not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support this channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside the show while it is live, and a link in the info box once the video has rendered. But most importantly, if you would like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box to join the panel and express your views on the shape of the Earth. There are a couple of rules in the Hangout. Number one, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. So as I say, this is technically a part B show. Hopefully the full recording won't be interrupted and we'll have a full recording of this broadcast. But in the meantime, please share the show. Obviously this is a new stream, so please share it, as it does increase the live audience, which in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel. So please share the show. And one last time, if you are new to the panel, if you're new to the show or this channel, please hit the subscribe button and the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth debate. With that, I'll pass back to Arwin and Sleeping Warrior, who have rejoined us from the part A of this show. How you doing, Sleeping Warrior? Are you still here?
Yeah, I'm all right. I love how Arwin now, because he's had he had that little hissy fit the other day. He now demands the mic all the time.
Good, he should, because otherwise you'll verbal diarrhea all over him and he'll never get a word in, so it's good that he
No. Etiquette works both ways. Sometimes he has to shut up as well, you know.
I love Arwin, I think he's great. Just want to back that up, Arwin. You're ace, mate, in my book.
It's just that when I make an entirely new point, it just seems like it's just wrong to then immediately roll over it with the same rolling the ball back up the hill. Like, there's a time, I understand you want to keep on doing that, and it has its function, which was very well explained. But when I bring up a new point and you immediately roll over it with rolling the ball back up the hill, that seems kind of rude, really.
Well, I wasn't rolling the ball back up the hill.
Yeah,
this is a new ball.
Yeah, you were. You were responding to a troll in chat concerning the stuff that you're talking about for months now. It would have been nice if you actually listened to what I had to say and then respond to that instead of
it works two ways, though. You've also got to listen to me, because I wasn't actually re-rolling the ball up the hill. I was asking a new point on a whole new topic that no flat earther or ball earther has ever mentioned to us before. It was a totally new ball up a new hill, and it was aimed at Sly, who knows the Earth is flat.
Right. Well, anyway, if I bring up a new point and I take my time to explain it, to bring up something interesting, it would be nice if you'd actually respond to that. Like, you know, just as a courtesy, maybe.
Sure. And as I said, I wasn't listening to it because I was lining up a response to Sly, which I thought was a very good question that needs to be addressed by a baller because it's new science. Now, I apologise that I didn't answer your question. However, Nathan did. So you did get an answer, and I gave way patiently. Did. So it works two ways, though. When Nathan's trying to reintroduce his show, shh.
Yeah, sorry, that was just bad timing on my part.
It's all right, don't worry. I'm chuckling away.
Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, continue on. I think I made my point pretty clear about just. It would be very interesting working more on how refraction works, getting that cleared up, to basically counter the entire illusion of that there's a curvature, so-called, and how the ballers are mechanizing and frauding optical science. I think that will be very interesting to start hammering that down on a regular basis. And
well,
that's just my opinion, and continue.
That was the actual question I was asking Sly. I was asking Sly to explain what we're seeing on the horizon, because from our perspective, we call it refraction. They call refraction the bending of light around the curvature of the Earth. We see refraction as something optical that's on the horizon that seems to be relative to the angle of observation. And as you get nearer to the horizontal, that angle changes, and it makes us see some kind of mirroring or reflection or whatever. And that's the exact point I was asking Sly.
All right.
Which proves that you were more focusing on me not answering your question than listening to what I said in response to, or aimed at Sly about the exact point you just made.
Come on, anyway. What's this pissing competition all about?
He's just being a bitch, that's all.
Me? Am I?
No, you completely ignored Arwin I've got to side with Arwen on this because he made a good point, and I was waiting to answer him. Then you completely ignored it.
I know, and I've apologised, and I gave way, and I let him speak. But then the question that he then asked was, we should spend more time addressing refraction, which was the exact thing I was doing.
Yeah, basically, you're all keen to get your own points in and not really listening to each other, which is fair enough.
No, I'm listening to Riley, and
you're bored of it.
I'm listening right now because I made my point. That is over, and now I'm actually interested in what he was talking about. I'd love to get into this more, and I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, somebody else.
Well, do you know what actually happened when I gave way to you, Arwen? Because I gave way to you, right, on the point of refraction that we're now talking about, Sly has since finished his dinner break. He's gone back to his job, and now we don't have the ability for him to respond.
Oh.
So
we'll get
a
chance. I'm sure Sly will be around tomorrow.
Yeah.
To play.
So just make sure that the ballers are aware and keep telling Sly that he's got 2 questions outstanding from the first 10-15 minutes of the show dealing with that refraction band that we're talking about right now, that we want to know what the science is for it, because it isn't addressed by current science. There is no current physics to explain the phenomena that we see at the horizon, which is this mirroring thing, which I know they can call it mirage, but the boat's not dropping behind no curve. That's the problem. The boat is stretching.
I have to say that I'm not too sure if there really is no science for this. I think there probably is a very well worked out optical science that is just not really put out in schooling and such. But it must be there, because how else could you perfect optical science? How else could you perfect lensing, all that lasers, if you don't have these details of the real world? Would make any sense if it didn't exist.
Hold on, we've got a new guest. Can I just say hello to the new guest? How you doing, new guest?
Hello.
Hello, good to have you here. What's your name? Chocolate something? What can we do for you?
Chocolate saying.
Chocolate what?
Saying.
Okay.
Chocolate Saiyan, apparently.
Fair enough.
Is the Earth a ball or is it flat, sir?
I would be a flat earther, sir.
Right.
Cool. How long have you been a flat earther for?
Yeah, I'm gonna. I want to say maybe about a year.
Yeah, you'll have to forgive our initial suspicion or skepticism or abruptness, but we get a lot of people that pretend to be people that they're not. Generally on the ball side, generally trying to disrupt or just generally be an idiot. So it's a little bit. We've got to try and work out who's like normal as a human and who's a subhuman.
That's fine. That's fine. I understand. I've been listening to you guys for a while, so I kind of understand what goes on here. So I get it.
Right.
Cool.
Well, welcome to the panel.
Just make sure you don't interrupt Arwen. I'm sorry, Arwen.
It's really getting old, Riley. Stop doing it. No, it's really getting old. You may think it's funny. The laddie, really getting old.
The laddie sort of, when you were at school and you pushed each other on the shoulder. I wasn't one of those guys either.
Yeah, it's banter. I see it as banter. I don't mean it with malice.
I know you don't see it. I know you don't mean it with malice, but I can see how it would irritate Arwen as opposed to him just going, "Yeah, you stupid wanker."
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not like that. So.
Tell us about your journey then. How did you realise? What was the thing for you that flicked it round so you thought, hey, maybe we're not on a ball after all?
Who, me?
Yeah. Sorry, chocolate. Sorry.
Well, honestly, since I was a kid, the whole globe thing never really made sense. To tell you the honest truth. I mean, growing up, teachers are telling me water's hanging on the underside of a ball, and people are walking around, planes are flying around upside down. It was just weird to me.
So you didn't believe in gravity when they told that?
It was a nice story, and I guess I took it after a while. Teachers are telling you this every day, putting it into your head. So eventually you're like, okay, they know what they're talking about. I'm a kid, so whatever.
Yeah, no, the scientism eventually panned out for them, I guess.
Ah,
It usually does. They
but
just keep on overwhelming you with complexities and data, and yeah, they know better. They got all the formulas, and eventually, especially as a kid, it just overwhelms you, and you just say, "Okay, you know better, I guess."
yeah, because
Happens
most
to
kids are like,
everyone.
yeah, most kids are just like, oh, the teachers know better. So obviously somebody's done the science, somebody's done the research. The guys on TV are all behind this. So, but it never really made sense to me. It was always just something's off about it, you know?
And of course, when you think
Always that
about it, when
feeling.
one of the first questions a 5, 6, 7-year-old asks when told that we live on a ball is they always say, "So how does water stick to it then?" And then the answer is obviously gravity. And then they have to explain gravity
Yeah,
to a 6-year-old, which we all accept because it's true. It's science from a primary school perspective. We all just accept it for 20 years because whilst you're going through the indoctrination system of education, it's never even questioned flat Earth. They don't have a section in school saying some people think the Earth's flat. This is the evidence for it. It's just not even. It's lying by omission. They're not telling you that there is another perspective. Now, whether the Earth's flat or
yeah,
not is the moot point. But at the age of 6, if you're told that we live on a ball and gravity holds the waters of the oceans onto the shape of the Earth, but it lets butterflies fly around it, then you're going to believe it because little Miss Johnson or whatever your teacher was called, she's lovely and you love her and she's not going to lie to you. So why would you challenge or question it? But the reality is, if you're told
exactly.
at the age of 6 that we live in a ball and there's something called gravity for 20 years while you go through the education system, you don't realize that it's not. It's a long time not to
Nope,
challenge something.
nope.
Well, with me, what really got to me, what kept on sowing the doubt when I was young, is basically how the moon works. What you actually get to see from the moon. And people always got really irritated when I started to ask questions about it, like why would you see the daylight through the dark side of the moon? And why would you sometimes at night, especially when it's when the light side is really sharp, why would you see like this dark disk there, but not during the daylight? That type of thing. The moon always really confused me. Like it doesn't make any sense that the same side would always face you, but
Same
yet
here.
it would grow dark like it does in that sense. It just never really made any sense to me. It felt really, really off, and I never got that feeling away ever.
Yeah,
They
I
basically
completely agree with
intimidated
that.
me into stop talking about it.
And I was one of those kids that loved staring at the sky. Like
Hmm.
the
Me too.
moon, the stars, I would sit outside for hours just staring at the sky. Never really had a telescope or anything like that, but the sky always fascinated me. It was always insane to me how everything works. But
Well, I was dreaming about
the part of
space.
me that loves science was like, wait a minute, like how is it that we're moving in all these different directions all the time? We're never, even in 1 second, we're never in, supposedly never in the same spot in the galaxy, but yet all the stars are right there. Every year they reset completely to the same spot. Polaris never moves. Like it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, you know what
And
I actually. Sorry.
water does not curve. Like somebody please find me a picture of water that curves, and I'll be a Glober again. But until then, I mean, it's ridiculous.
Well,
It's ridiculous.
I can break your bubble a little bit in that sense, and that is that during the tides, the seawater is actually drawn towards the land, and there is a slight curve. It's just not a consistent cumulative curve. So water
Oh,
does
it might
actually
be
curve during the
curving.
tides.
It might be curving,
Yeah,
but it's
exactly.
not a curve. It's not sitting there as a curve. I
No, it
understand
is. At
exactly
that
what you
time, it
mean.
is really, but it's not universal. It's not everywhere. It's just that part is slightly curved, and then it uncurves.
To avoid that
So
happening to you again, Chocolate, just use the word at rest in the sentence. The words at rest. So, water at rest.
yeah, exactly. Now, water at rest does not curve.
Okay, yeah, I get you. I
Yeah,
got you.
but
But
the
yeah,
weird,
I still haven't seen it.
the weird thing, what something that really hanged in with me for a long time, like up until like I was 14 or something, is I was always dreaming about outer space. I really was a big believer. I explain this every time. Like, if I balled up my fist, I would just see the Earth ball and space around it, and I was it was so ingrained in my mind that that was real. But I never really believed. I thought science was wrong, that the galaxy was spinning around, because I just thought, look, only the Earth is spinning, because all the stars are always in exactly the same place, and like all the records say, like all these signs in the skies, they're always the same shape. So it doesn't make any sense that the galaxy is spinning around. It's just the Earth that is spinning around in this still space vacuum, where apparently other stars and balls are just hanging around, standing still. That is what I had thought was the reality for a very, very long time. But science just always insisted, no, it's all moving around each other, and it's always falling into this gravity thing, and it's like they messed it up. It's like they completely messed up the theory and made it impossible to work. They broke the illusion, as it were. It's so weird how that works.
By not really defining gravity. I mean, gravity is strong enough to hold water, millions of tons of water to the bottom, to the pull it to the center of the Earth. But butterflies and
How
birds can
about
just
the
fly
air? How
around,
about
and
the air?
air
The air
next to
sticking to the
the air
ball
next
because
to a
of gravity, a
vacuum.
weak force, while the strong force of buoyancy and air wanting to expand, versus the infinite universe of vacuum space out there. So an infinite vacuum compared to gravity holding just one layer of air perfectly still on that ball. That is, that eventually really broke the illusion for me once I figured out the mechanics of vacuum, how that could never ever work unless there was like a physical dome keeping it all in. But then every world that would have air would have been forced to be designed with a dome around it, or it could never have life. And then how would life come into existence if a dome would have been designed just for life to arrive? So that makes it even more complex as you keep on reasoning.
What kills me is how these ballers, and I hate to call them that, because I mean that's what I used to be too, but some of them are so smart. I don't understand how they can see these things and not work it out themselves in their brain.
Well,
like it doesn't make any sense to me. I know there's
it's a different type of smartness,
but it's I don't know. It's like, how do they not see this though? Like,
well, because they choose not to. It is a different type of smartness. It is a smartness of figuring out patterns, but they don't figure out that just because they can see the patterns, they can see the fractal in how it works, that doesn't make it real. It is kind of a lack of wisdom where they don't understand that just because you can see it, it might not actually be real. Because if you understand something, they have fallen for the trick that if you can reason something out, that it must be real, basically. And it is a different type of, it's a calculative intelligence. It's like a computer intelligence, being quick to figure out the patterns, figuring out how something works, but they don't have the sensibility, it seems, to then figure out that even with all that intelligence, it still doesn't work. So it's just a different type of mind, and because somebody's fast, they can be really impressive, but doesn't make them more capable of actually figuring out reality. And that is the problem.
Can I just make a point?
It is culturally mistaken, basically, that being fast of mind actually makes you smarter.
No, you're right.
You go, Riley.
the stars, I agree with Arwin. The stars, when you look up at them and you watch them rotate in the night sky, you see that what we're told is that all of these stars are all at different distances away. Now, to me, the stars look flat. They look on the same plane. They don't look like there's 3 dimensions to them. It looks like it's a flat plane. That's how I see the stars. But if you map out the stars in terms of Sirius and Betelgeuse, you'll see that part of the Orion network, the Orion constellation, is Sirius and Betelgeuse are right next to each other, right? They're very, very close in the night sky. And there is no parallax between the two of them. However, Sirius is meant to be 8.6 light years away. In contrast, Betelgeuse is something like 642.5 light years away. If you apply the principles of parallax to the distance and the proximity of those two beings, or those two celestial bodies, relative to Earth, as we go round the moon, as we go round the sun, misspeak there, as we go round the sun, Betelgeuse and Sirius should parallax. They should significantly, because Betelgeuse is so much further away, according to science, than what Sirius is. There is no observable parallax, and what they say that's because is that they are that far away that they don't parallax. No, parallax works on distant objects as it does on close objects, and Sirius is very close to us. Betelgeuse is very far away from us. Relative to each other, if you scale them out, there is parallax there, and we see none. That tells you that the stars are on the same plane. They're as close to us as what we are to them. You can almost touch them. That's because they're close. They are not parallaxing. There is no parallax. No, there is. There's a couple of trillion, like a little tiny, they do measure a little tiny bit of microscopic, but that's atmospheric. We know that the atmosphere, as we look through it, distorts what we see, and that's what all we're seeing. The little tiny, minuscule amount of parallax is because of the atmosphere. It's not to do with 642.5 light years away for Betelgeuse against Sirius being 8. It's nonsense.
Yep. Well, you're correct. And then there is the factor that if you go up high enough, the stars just disappear entirely. Even with that latest thing with the car in space, even there were no stars. It's just every time and time again. It's just there in plain sight. If you go up high enough, there's no stars. They're just not there. It's only a visual phenomena that can be seen from down Earth. So from
and
down
what's
on
crazy is you can't really just blame that on NASA, because even amateur like weather balloon footage that goes up 120,000 feet, even in that you don't see stars.
Yeah, exactly. Everywhere.
The
it's
sun
always
is right there.
Once you go up high enough, the stars disappear from view. Somehow it might be atmosphere related, that there needs to be a certain level of atmosphere around for this optical phenomena of the stars to become visible. And that if you go up high enough, that the Earth thickness no longer is thick enough to carry this effect. It could be something like that.
Just addressing Geo in chat, he says, we measure parallax by comparing the stars in question to the background stars. Therefore, atmospheric effects are irrelevant. Now, here's the thing. If you're going to compare the stars in question to the background stars, Betelgeuse is 640 light years away, compared to Sirius, that is less than 10. So if you're going to compare the two together, GeoStreamer, there should be parallax, and it should be prominent, because the one in front of us, Sirius, should be zooming across the sky over a year relative to Betelgeuse, and it doesn't do it. There is no movement between Betelgeuse and Sirius. That means there is no parallax between Betelgeuse and Sirius. Therefore, the distances between them are not what we're told. There is very little to none, and it's explained perfectly by the atmosphere that we live in. As we look through the atmosphere and the temperature gradients change over the period of the days, the weeks, the months, the years, that microscopic amount, which is refraction, it is minuscule, it is negligible, is going to cause a negligible change in the way the stars appear to us. And that is perfectly what you would expect to see if there was a little tiny microscopic thing that you guys call parallax between the things. But if you actually compare the star in question, so in this case Betelgeuse, to the background stars, Sirius. So compare Sirius in question to the background star being Betelgeuse, where is the parallax? Why is there no parallax when there is a huge difference between the two distances between the two stars? And the answer is, of course, there is no parallax because the stars are all on the same plane. Unless there's evidence to prove otherwise, parallax should be there. Why is it not?
I'm going to do a quick link as I estimate that we have about half an hour left on this live stream. If you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth debate. If you'd like to support this channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside the show while it's live and a link in the info box once the video has rendered. But most importantly, if you'd like to join the panel, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the discussion and express your views on the shape of the Earth. There are a couple of rules in the Hangout. Number one, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. As I say, there is approximately 30 minutes left on this live stream. If you've not done so already, please share the show, as sharing the show increases the live audience, which in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel. So please share the show. And one last time, if you're new to the channel or you have not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth debate.
Okay, I'm being asked to prove the star claim, and I'm going to do that, Nath, if you wouldn't mind sharing my screen, because it's something that the ballers simply refuse to. Are you done? It's something that the ballers simply refuse to address, because they can't do it. You can do this by something called ratios. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen, and then I'm going to pull up. Nath, let me know when you've done it. I'm going to pull up Betelgeuse, and then I'll minimize that down to the side.
Hey, Gary Johnson, can you say a quick hello?
Hello, Nathan.
Good to have you.
Good to have you here. Great. I want to tell you about how I became a flat earther. Can I tell that story?
I don't see why not.
Well, it was one day in October, and we had a storm. It was a really bad storm, very storm. It was a storm. And my friend, who's a scientist, I asked him, where do storms come from? And he said, they come in from the Pacific Ocean. I said, the Pacific Ocean? He said, yeah, Pacific Ocean. Now, my friend, he's a scientist. And he dresses like a scientist, looks like a scientist. He's a scientist. So I started wondering, well, you know, I'm not sure they do come in from the Pacific Ocean. So I started looking into the whole thing, and it turns out that they don't. And he was telling me about meteorology. And did you know that meteorology is in the study of meteors? I didn't know that. Study of weather. Anyway, so I looked into the whole thing, and I couldn't find any curvature. I couldn't find out where storms came from. I discovered the Earth was flat. What'd you think of that?
A lovely story. Thank you.
Sounds like the story of some Father Christmas as well, doesn't it? Just like, you know.
Well, I just
really
want
nice
to tell
story.
you that's how it all began. It was one day in October, and just really stormy day.
It's cool.
Thank you. I thought that was an interesting story.
I agree. It's lovely. So, whereabouts are you joining us from?
Arizona.
Pardon?
Arizona.
Arizona. You don't sound like
That's
you're
right.
from Arizona.
Well, I'm not from there originally.
Where are you from originally?
I don't want to give too much information on the internet. You know, it's a lot of people there, a lot of nasty people. I'm sure you've encountered a few of them.
You from Scotland originally?
Scotland originally? No, from Arizona.
Arizona. Okay.
Arizona.
Well, thank you.
That's right.
Thank you for your story. It was lovely.
Well, I just wanted to tell you.
Right. Okay. So we're going to get back on track. Sidetrack there.
Get back
Derailed
on track,
a little
yeah.
bit. Now, Sirius is one of the closest stars to us. It's not the closest, but it's not far off us. But it sits in the night sky next to Betelgeuse, very, very close to it. And it's only, if you compare the two distances,
Betelgeuse. It's called Betelgeuse.
8.6 light years away. But Betelgeuse is 642 light years away. So if you do the maths on that, you can work out what kind of percentage distance there is between the two. But there is parallax there, and it would be blatantly obvious. But it's not just on these stars, it's on all the stars. The star field is a 3-dimensional field, right? All the stars are all at different levels away from us. They're all different distances away from us. So there should be a continuous parallax issue on every single star relative to all the other stars in the background. GeoStreamer is quite right. However, we see none of it. None of the stars parallax with any of each other, and there should be, because the further away one gets relative to the close one, these two would have a really, really big, prominent amount of parallax. And guess what? There is none. So they've got to explain that, and it's because all the stars are trillions of years away.
That's the sound of Jazzaconda. How you doing, Jazz? Can you hear us? Hello?
Yeah, g'day.
Good day. Good to have you.
I'll just mute for a quick second.
No, it's okay. I'd like to ask you if you knew the reason why there wasn't any parallax between these distant celestial bodies. That's one significantly further than the other one.
Oh yeah, no, I'll just mute for a quick second. I'll just close some windows and I'll be back.
Okay. I'll wait. We have a half an hour left or whatever.
Maybe
20 minutes.
I don't really know. The timers have all reset when the Wi-Fi crashed, so I don't really know how long we've got left, and I can't remember what time we started. It's one of those. I'll round it out when my wife gets home for lunch.
All right. Okay. Alk says, so I can't prove what? I can't prove what's that, Al? That you did or didn't know that Miles was telling lies when he put his video out at 40 feet and you knew it was only about 20 feet that he was above the water, but you let him do it anyway? Is that what you're asking me?
I really don't think he's a liar, Anthony. I don't think he's a liar.
You don't think who's a liar?
Oh, yeah.
I don't think Miles is a liar. I just think it's flat, but I think you made a little error in judgment there. But I don't think he's a liar.
He's definitely lying.
I don't think you're lying. I don't think he's lying. I don't think he's a liar.
He went to the observation point, knew exactly how high sea level was, and irrespective went to
It's this metric thing. We got a metric system. You got the imperial, something like that. Or the other way around. I'm not sure.
Rather than tipping his camera down,
that's where it might be. I don't know. Maybe look into that.
Maybe rather than tipping his camera down 2 inches, he went to the ordnance survey map and did an extrapolation.
Maybe one's working in feet and the other's working in meters. I don't know. It's just a guess.
So I
don't know much about it.
Rather than tipping his camera down 2 inches to just show the sea in the footage,
well, what's 2 inches in the UK? I mean, that's like what, 5 centimeters or something?
So rather than tipping his camera down to take in the water, he chose to go to the ordnance survey map and do an extrapolation that was not in line with the tide level at the time. That's dishonest.
Well, if you mix up imperial and metric, I don't think it's dishonest.
You've ignored my point
he mixed up imperial and metric, and that was the explanation for why he was like
that
20,
might be it.
20
I don't know.
feet
You should look into it. That's all I'm saying.
He claimed he was 40 feet, and it turns out that he was no more than 25. And you think that was down to an imperial to metric conversion, right?
It's a possibility. It's just a possibility. Just throwing out possibilities.
I agree it is a possibility, but what's the percentage possibility that it might be accurate in terms of what he's done?
No idea.
There? Would you say it's
absolutely
likely?
No idea? Couldn't say.
No, I couldn't
What
say
about
either.
being there at high tide and then minusing off a certain amount off his actual height above sea level when he knew exactly what his height above sea level was because he could see it? Why would you go to a map and do an extrapolation when you can physically see it and you don't?
No idea. You gotta ask him.
Yeah, I would just assert that he's just a liar, having not tipped the camera down 2 inches.
It's a distinct possibility.
Yeah, I agree.
Agent Detective in chat says that.
He could be lying. He could be lying. Him. It could be lying. It could all be lies. Who knows? The whole globe thing's lie.
Sorry, just a short remark. Agent Detective.
He's lying. You're lying. We're all lying. Who knows?
Agent Detective says, Riley, that you're a Satanist because you just showed that picture with the two boxes over it, and then now you just have one eye, so you're a Satanist because of that. That was pretty funny.
Actually, it looks more like Delby on the imaginary curve. Like half of it's like seen and visible, and the other half of my face is in the darkness. Because sometimes when he has the lighting in at such a position, it looks like you can't see the other side of his face. You know, like the dark side of the moon. Sometimes when he has the lighting in such a position, he can't see the other side of his face.
I'm back now, real quick. Was it you talking to me, Riley, before?
Sure. Just as Nathan's turned his screen off, Nathan, would you stick it back on for Jazz?
Yeah, sure. Sorry, Jazz. Didn't realise you were back, mate.
That's all good.
Jazz, according to the system, the science of the skies, the astronomy of the skies, Sirius is one of the closest stars to us at apparently 8.6 light years. However, in the same in the same part of the sky, you can find Betelgeuse, and that's distance to Earth is 642.
It's Betelgeuse. It's not Betelgeuse. It's Betelgeuse.
Is 642 light years
Betelgeuse,
from the Earth.
Betelgeuse. That's the film. It's Betelgeuse.
So my question is, do you know why there isn't any parallax relative to the distances? Why does parallax not seem to exist in space?
Well, this is just my understanding, purely because of the distances.
That's what creates the parallax, though, right?
Well, that is, but you can be in a car in the passenger seat, and the person driving the car can be driving at 100 k's, but in the passenger seat you can look over to your right. I don't know what, so you drive on over there, or you're on the left, same. You can look over and it might look like the driver's doing 104 k's.
I was really disappointed that they nominated you for that stupid award. What's the name of it? Something of the year? What's it called again?
Yeah,
Darwin.
Shut up. We're trying to get an answer. You're interrupting.
Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot.
So if we forget about the distances, forget about the unit at the minute, the unit of light years, we'll just disregard for the sake of the maths. If we do 8.6, divide that by 642.5, we get the value of 0.013. So that's basically 1% of the distance. The distance of Sirius to Betelgeuse is 1% of the distance. And there should be parallax there, and we don't see any of it.
No, we do. It is measurable, but it's very, very tiny, like that number that you've just come up with.
But something that's 1% of the distance. You know how they say that the sun and the moon, when they get in close proximity to each other in the sky, and they talk about the eclipse, the distance to the moon is 250-ish thousand miles, but the sun is 93 million miles away. And that distance between the relative distance between the sun and the moon and relative to the Earth casts this umbra and penumbra thing, and it creates a shadow because of parallax. But that's the similar kind of thing. The sun is very, very far away, but the moon is very, very
Miles,
close.
how are you doing? Can you hear us?
Hello, folks.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
Can I very quickly, I only have a moment, can I very quickly just present my screen and address something that Nathan just said?
Yeah, you can. Just give us a second just to get to the end of this point.
The point that Nathan made was we should have put the camera down at the time we took the video in order.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I'm up for this.
I don't think it's going to allow this to play for some reason.
I'll stop sharing so that
I'll try and open it again and see if it will.
Thank you, Miles. You're presenting.
Okay, can you see the screen?
Yes, we see you.
Can the audience see the screen as well?
Or is this your video or Alkay's video?
This is Alkay's video. This is the one that I presented. I took footage from this video. Okay?
Is this the one that you presented for the turbines video in the actual video?
Just shut up and listen for a second.
We're just trying to get clarity. Is this the video that you're saying that this is? I just want to get it clear. Have you ever presented data from your camera?
This is the evidence that was presented in my video about wind turbines.
Was it your evidence from your camera? That's what I'm asking.
Which you keep on saying was no evidence of where the tide was at the time, and you have claimed that we should have shown.
What are you talking about? I haven't leveled anything at Alkay, and now you're playing an Alkay video. When
no,
you filmed...
No, Nathan, you leveled it directly at Alkay because that Alkay was where the video evidence came from.
Did you
and
take
if you
any
look at
evidence?
the end of the video here, you will see the camera pointed down.
Simple question, Miles. Did you take any footage with your camera, yes or no?
And the height of the tide. Nathan.
Miles, I'm going to ask you it nice and slowly. Did you take any footage with your camera, yes or no?
Yes, I have not presented that footage. The footage I've presented is the footage from Al, and that footage is what is in dispute. The tide height at the time, and as I have just shown you, the tide height was shown in that video at that time. That's
right.
all
Can
I
you
have
show
to say.
where in
Again.
the video
Goodbye.
that you presented to us where the tide was
Goodbye.
shown? And if you're not sure, it's the one that's entitled Flat Earth, Earth-Shaped Tourist UK, St. Bees, Episode 1. It was for 1 hour and 11 minutes. In that video, can you show us where the tide
Gone.
was shown?
Just dropped, just presented his selective evidence, ignored all our questions, and then ran away.
I noticed something really interesting right there in the footage that he
Why have
showed.
you run away, Miles? Why have you run away?
Did he just run away? He ignored all your questions and ran away. That's.
Got a couple of questions
You
about
sure
your
didn't get
footage.
sniped? He might have got sniped.
No.
Maybe a
Nobody's
sniper.
got-
Probably
nobody
a sniper.
sniped him.
Maybe a
No,
sniper.
he just left. He
I
said
think it
he
was a sniper. It was always a sniper.
No, it wasn't a snipe. He said he would leave and he
Might have
and
been a
he
sniper.
left.
Check the
I
log.
didn't
Check the
even
log.
get what
Look at the
his
log.
point
Have a look at
was.
the log. Check the log. Might be a sniper.
No, he said he would leave and then he left.
Oh, I didn't hear that.
All right, try and pay attention.
But I noticed something.
I'm sorry. I don't know. I
interesting.
get 1,000 thoughts a minute. You know.
Can I say something for a moment? I saw something really interesting again in that footage of those wind turbines he showed. It was pretty funny because when you looked at the bottom right over that slant zone of the sea, you saw the, I don't know, how do you say it? Like the three things, the wicks. How do you call that in English? Sorry.
Blades?
The blades, yes, the blades. As the blades approached the bottom, as they were turning, you saw that they were being reflected. They were stretched in another angle as they approached. So you saw like, well, a mirage in the refraction zone. It was reflected right there. It was really interesting.
Yeah, just to echo
Very
that point
visual.
briefly. Just to echo that point briefly, I'll show that these are the actual turbines that Miles is talking about, and you can see. I think on this particular, if I don't catch it on this video, I'll just drop the point because I don't know where exactly it is. No, it's not. All right, I'll drop that point. But you're right. The blades, the turbine blades, do weird stuff. So Miles has just joined. I'm just going to take the mic off you a sec, Arwen. Is that okay?
No.
Okay. Let me know when you're ready because I want to show something that Miles has claimed, but didn't claim back then, which I find manifestly absurd, if you want for a better phrase.
Manifestly absurd. That's it. Absolutely. Manifestly absurd. It's absurd.
What are you?
Manifestly
Can I carry
absurd.
on? Are you finished with your points? Because I don't want to step on your toes, but I do want to say something.
How you doing, Ranty? Can you hear us?
I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay, we only got a few minutes left because I'm going to break.
Oh,
for
right,
lunch.
okay.
Oakley, sorry,
Just
just
a few minutes left. Just a
relation
few
to
minutes left. That's all. A few minutes left.
the turbine blades. What are you talking about in relation to the blades do some weird shit because they are designed to flex, especially at the tips of the blades, just like a helicopter blade.
Right, hang on. Let's deal. We need to deal with the blades under time. I want to deal with Miles coming in and outbursting that he did have evidence of the tide, because the blades is something else that can take a whole conversation. And the point I want to make is only a minute or two. In Miles's video, Earth-Shaped Tourist St. Bees Episode 1, Miles shows absolutely no evidence anywhere in this video what the tide was. Okay. Now he's popped up claiming that he's got evidence of where the tide was. Now, this is his actual video, and this is the actual footage. Now, aside from the fact that he claims this is the curvature of the Earth, there is no evidence in the video anywhere of what to help us with what the tide was. Now, this doesn't help us because he doesn't show it in the context. So let's just speed this up so it's a bit faster. Now, we're looking for what the tide was relative to his position at the time.
I don't
Not
see
the
any
tide in the-
helicopters in this. There's no
Gary,
helicopters
can you
here.
please stop interrupting?
I don't see any.
Gary,
So we're trying to see what the tide is relative to his recording position because it's his height above the tide where he is that's the issue. Not the tide at the peninsula of land where these houses are that are meant to be behind the curve of the Earth, but he didn't think about that at the time. We're trying to see the evidence to support where the actual tide was, and there is none. There is none whatsoever. So Miles has just burst in now, 2 seconds, and said, there's the evidence of where the tide was, and he didn't present that in the video. Had he have done that in the video, it would have been generally considered to be more acceptable if he'd have showed it, but he didn't. And now he's telling us at that time that the video was recorded, the tide is where he's just told us. No, Miles, we've got to reject that evidence because you can't prove it's contemporaneous with what you actually recorded at the time. You can't add it in afterwards and claim that it's real. It's more evidence that you're faking it, to be honest with you, because you should have done this at the time. You know the score. You know that you've got to show where you were, and you've got to show that water level. And you didn't do it. So you're bursting in right now telling us that.
For the last, 3 weeks, and he's had it all along, so he could have just presented that.
No, he hasn't had it,
Ranty. It would have all been.
He hasn't had it. He hasn't had it. I'm going to correct you there. He hasn't had it. He's presented it as real, but he's never had it in the first place, because there's no way that Miles would negligently or recklessly forget to include that. He's literally passing it off as though that's where the tide was. He's talking nonsense. He's trying to. It's damage mitigation and nothing more. You're lying, Miles.
And with that, I'm going to say, first and foremost, a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of the audience for tuning in and hopefully for sharing this debate. If you've not done so already, be sure to like, comment, share and subscribe. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.